Hello, I'm Noel. This is Antonia from Boxtail Soup Theatre Company, and this week we thought we would talk about remembering shows, in particular past shows that we haven't done in a while. If I look like I'm smiling a little bit or a little red in the face, it's because I've just screwed this introduction up several times. So this is take 4 or something like that. So over the last few months, obviously we've been touring Gulliver, which is the newest show, and it's one that we've been working on for a while, and we rehearsed it this year, and we took it to Edinburgh, and then we took it on tour. At the same time, we were also touring The Wind in the Willows.
Yeah, which we think we created in 2017. We're not 100% sure, but it was something like that. So it was a good few years ago, and it certainly hasn't been out on tour since 2018, I don't think. Mm-hmm. So the point being, remembering something that was from a little while ago.
Yeah, coming back to it, picking it up again, and remembering, not just remembering the lines, and you know the basics of what you do, but also remembering all the little details that elevate it and make it special and that really make it work.
And then we did Alice last weekend.
Yes. And
that was in Rustington, and that was for a fundraising event as a charity performance. And so that was another show that we hadn't done for a little while. I think I've just done a bit of maths in my head, and I think I worked out that we've done, you and I, by the end of this year, we'll have done 7 different shows.
Wow.
So because in February or whenever it was, we did Alice and Northanger in Barnes.
Wow, I had forgotten about that.
I know, me too. Yeah. And then we did both Grimm's shows on tour, so that's another 2 different shows, and that was also this year.
That's all this year.
This is the weird thing. And then it was making Gulliver, and then The Wind in the Willows. Oh no, it's 8. Hang on. Alice, Northanger. Grimm, Gulliver, Willows, Christmas Carol, Hansel and Gretel, 8 different shows. I can't count. 8 different shows this year. And that's why we thought we'd do this vlog today, because we are today, the rest of the day and tomorrow will be spent getting this stuff out for Christmas Carol and Hansel and Gretel.
Yes.
To check it all over and then see if we can remember those shows.
Yeah, so we've got, as we mentioned before, we've got performances of those at the Exchange Theatre in Twickenham on the 2nd and 3rd of December. We're doing 2 performances of each show. And we haven't done them since
Christmas last
year. We did a lot of performances last year, obviously, and we did Christmas Carol first in 2020. We only did 6 performances of it, but we also created it then, so that does really help to bed it in. And then yes, last year obviously we did 65 performances.
So I think we did 30 something of each show, exactly, basically.
Yeah. So again, we did a lot of performances, but then you go on a complete break and you put that out of your mind entirely because you're working on something completely different. So today we're going to be coming back to those, and it's always slightly funny. I don't know whether you find the same thing, because again, I think we may have mentioned this before, but Antonia is generally far better at learning lines, certainly, and picking that sort of thing up far more quickly than I do. You know, you can sit and look at a page of lines and kind of commit them to memory, and I'll still be struggling 2 or 3 days later. I have to kind of get up and do it. And
it's just different ways of learning there, isn't it, really?
Yeah. I think the more that we've done it, the more I've realised that and come to terms with it. And well, yeah, I mean, sometimes you do feel bad if you're in rehearsals and you're the one holding it back because you're the one who keeps forgetting something or isn't quite on top of their lines, and you've got it absolutely 100% nailed. You know, you do feel a little bit like...
But then I'm much slower at other things. You know, you're much quicker at, you know, if we have to learn a piece of choreography, or there's some slightly weird movement that we have to do, I have to go over it about 25 times before I actually get it, whereas you've got it immediately. Sure.
So for me, you know, it's very much about the movement and getting it into the body, and you know, if you want to put it into teaching terms or whatever, it's a kinesthetic learner or something like that, I guess. I have to be able to get up and move around and do something with it in order for it to properly connect with me. Anyway, that's slightly tangential. The thing I was originally going to say was, I don't know whether you find the same thing, but sometimes when I consider coming back to a show that we've done before, if I stop and think about it too much, I start to wonder whether any of it is in there at all.
Oh, I definitely find that. And then I stop myself from thinking about it. And in fact, that's a good sort of segue into how I wanted to start, I don't know about you, but how I wanted to start talking about remembering A Christmas Carol. We thought we'd do that one first. That's the one we've done technically most performances of. But I did start to think about it the other day. And I had to stop myself, because the trouble is, if you try and if you try and think, oh yeah, so what do I do at the very beginning, and what do I do next, and what do I pick up there, you feel like you're never you can't access it. But actually, if we set it all up in here, which we will do later, and then just start and try and do it without thinking about it, I find so much more of it just happens. It's almost like your hand will reach for something, and you haven't even thought about it, but your hand's already picking that thing up and putting it over there, and you're like, oh yeah, of course that's what I did then. Because there's so much muscle memory, especially when you've done shows multiple times in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, I think they say that, you know, driving and that kind of thing becomes a secondary skill that you don't consciously think about at all. You know, you don't think about where you're going to put your hands and feet, you just drive. And once it's in your body and once you've got it like that, I think it's a similar sort of thing. You know, you, like you say, it's only when you stop and think about it too much that you start to trip yourself up. If you relax and trust yourself and just, you know, I don't know, somehow go with...
You sort of need your brain to get out of the way, don't you? You almost want to kind of take your brain out of your head, put it to one side, and then let the rest of you do what it knows, if that doesn't sound too weird. We did a vlog at some point called How Do You Remember All Those Lines? So I think Noel's going to put a link to that, because if you want to know a bit more specifics about how we learn shows and how we remember shows in that way, then that's the vlog to look at. Really, today we wanted, you know, it's more about that thing of having been apart from a show for a while. How do we feel about that, and how do we get back into it? I like to think of it as sort of, I've got a bookshelf in my head, and it's at the back of my brain, and all the shows are on the bookshelf. And when I put them back on the shelf when I don't need them, and then when I come back to it, I can take it off the shelf. But rather than reading it, I almost then open it, and it ends up playing out as a film, if that makes sense, as I'm doing it. So it's all very much metaphorical.
It's interesting, because I think of it a bit more like putting on a costume or something. You know, there's something physical, a physical change that happens to you that goes, okay, now I'm in the world of this story, and therefore it's gonna...
Yeah, so you step through it from something like a physical image, whereas I step through it from I don't know, is it metaphorical? Maybe it is even a verbal image, because I do visualise the book opening, and then I do that though. Then I step into the book, into another world, and go onto the stage, as it were.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, because it is something where you could really put sort of fear into yourself if you overthink it. And we've both had moments of that in our time with the company, I think, where we will have a conversation with each other after, and we'll say, oh, I'm too much in my head, and you're in the show, and every moment you're thinking, oh my god, I don't know what comes next, and it's horrible.
It's a strange kind of confidence to have, actually, because it's not the same as the confidence of going, you know, of kind of revising for something and going, I can recite all these facts, I know all these facts, and being very conscious about it. It's like you said, it's like getting your brain out of the way almost. You have to, at a certain point, you practice it, you rehearsed it, you've done it before, you have to step back and relax almost, and it's a bit like jumping off a ledge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And trusting that everything is packed, everything's ready, the parachute will open, because it's all well prepared.
Exactly. I used to do a lot of amateur theatre when I was a child, and I was very lucky because there were some wonderful societies around here with lots of adult actors who were ex-professionals and who had retired and still liked to do shows. And I remember this brilliant ex-professional actor, when I was off stage about to go on for the show, and I was going over my lines, and he stopped me and he said, Antonia, don't do that. He said, because if you forget one now, you'll freak yourself out, and then you won't. He said, just trust that you know it. And that's always stuck in my head. Trust that you know it. And that's what I say to myself now.
Yeah, you've put the work in.
Yeah.
Now just trust that you
know it.
Because thinking about it the last minute before is the worst thing. And the same thing, you know, for going through it now or going through it the night before in bed or something, thinking, well, do I remember this show? The worst thing is that if you forget anything, then you start to panic mentally and think,
that's not to say
I don't remember what comes next at all.
No, I mean, we'll set up a Christmas Carol, and when we do it first time, there's no way we're going to remember it all perfectly.
No.
It's too much. But so what we do is we've got filmed versions of the shows, so we'll have that on a laptop, and we'll be able to just go to it immediately and go, what happens there? Oh, that's it. Okay, fine, and then carry on.
Yeah, and a lot of the time you do just need a little nudge.
You need a memory jog, don't you?
The funny thing is that It happened with Wind in the Willows. So often you'll get to a certain point and you'll have an instinct, you'll have a feeling, like an impulse that goes, I want to move in this direction, but I don't know why. And then you'll check the video and you'll realise, oh, I didn't move that puppet there before, I should have done, and I wanted to go and pick it up. And then I stopped myself because it wasn't there. But
it's usually the movements the choreography that we do within the show that is helping your future self, as Adam Benson, our director, always used to like to say. Those are the bits that sometimes you forget, and you're right, you sort of, it'll either be that, or you'll get to a point and you'll be like, hang on a minute, this thing is supposed to be there now.
Yeah.
Why isn't it? Why did I forget? When am I supposed to actually do that?
It doesn't feel right turning that way.
Yeah.
I'm sure I turned that way.
It is quite weird, actually. It's quite a weird feeling, because it is like there are two parts of yourself, and there is a kind of past self that's inhabiting you and going, go on, go that way. So we'll do that. We'll start with the Christmas Carol first.
Yes.
Then we'll move on to Hansel and Gretel, and that is a slightly newer show, but it's a children's show. It's a little shorter. I know there are bits that I'm gonna trip myself up on with that.
Yeah, of course.
But
It's a funny one because there's Christmas Carol has more of a. I actually find the story easier to follow with that one, because it's very, very linear. Whereas Hansel and Gretel...
And also it's a story you know like the back of your hand anyway.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. So you know what comes next. With Hansel and Gretel, there is more repetition in it because of the nature of it being a family show. So there's lots of bits where we go and do practically the same thing.
But it's slightly different.
But in some ways that can be worse.
And that definitely that. And that's the thing I think we're going to find. We're going to have to go over a few times and we're going to oh yes, of course, this one, not that one.
Yes, this is the third time we do it.
Yeah, exactly. Because it was made for 3-year-olds upwards, and with toddlers, repetition is key. They love it. And so we deliberately put a lot of that in the show, but that does make it more difficult to remember.
And we haven't done that show quite as much.
Not quite, no. I mean, almost, but not quite.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be doing. We're very excited to get back to both shows. They're really lovely shows. And the other thing, when we get everything out, we'll be just checking everything over to make sure that there's nothing that's damaged or needs attention for them. We are, just to reiterate for about the millionth time, we're going to be in Twickenham with both shows, 2nd and 3rd of December, 3 o'clock Hansel and Gretel, 7 p.m. Christmas Carol. Hansel and Gretel on the Saturday is very, very full, so if you want to come to that one, please do book soon. Christmas Carol on Saturday is filling up. Christmas Carol on Friday is not as full. It's harder for us to sell adult shows at the moment, so please do help us spread the word. We really need everybody's help. It's lovely when we get a good audience, and it's really been very sweet actually, because I felt like when we got onto the sending out stuff about these shows to our following, everybody responded really quickly, and it was lovely because suddenly this really big bump in sales happened, and I was really heartwarmed because I thought you were all so loyal, and we're so grateful. But the more help that you can give us, the better with that. We're ever grateful. And I don't really think I have anything more to say about this particular topic. Do you?
No, not really. I mean, we'll go and find out now how well.
Yeah, we'll let you know
whether we can put what we've just said into practice and whether we actually remember them or not.
Well, exactly. We'll see how we get on. So wish us luck, and we will see you next week. If you are enjoying the vlogs, please do like, subscribe, leave us a comment. There are trailers up now for both Christmas Carol and Hansel and Gretel, so do give those a watch. Leave us a comment, leave us a like, share them around. That's also incredibly helpful, even if you're not coming to the shows.
Yeah, as ever, I mean, we've said this in the past, but we haven't said it so much recently. We have gained a few new subscribers as well, and so, as you always say, thank you very much to everyone who's joined us, and welcome. But the other one that I wanted to add that we haven't said for a while is just that if you do have questions or there's anything in particular that you'd like to know more about, please do feel free to drop us a message or leave us a comment on here, and we'll do our best always to answer those questions. Particularly
since actually when we've done these Christmas shows, we do have a little bit more time to potentially do something that's more based around tutorial or things like that. So if there is something you've asked us for and we've forgotten about, do feel free to remind us. We would love to remember to do that for you. So after all that waffle, thank you very much, and we'll see you again next week.
Hello. Oh dear, try that again. And we had to pick that show up, having never done it in the last, I don't know, the last 6 months, 8 months. We did perform it a little while ago. I feel like I've screwed all this. I'm gonna try
I really
again.
like it when that happens because I was like,
I know.
I just know that you're going to fizzle out in a minute, but I'm not quite sure when, and I don't really know what to do, and I just thought I'd let you do it and laugh about it.
You can see it in the eyes, can't you? You can see the lack of confidence. Sometimes when I freestyle, I lose confidence. It always comes into my head.
Should you try again?
Yes, let's try one more time.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Noel. This is Antonia from Boxtail Soup Theatre Company. And this week we would talk about... Okay, this is the one. This is the one.